Let me tell you about 2 summers I've had. In summer 1, I made a color-coded schedule, blocked out every hour, reading time from 9 to 10, math practice from 10 to 10:30, outdoor play 10:30 to noon, quiet time from 1 to 2, crafts from 2 to 3. By Tuesday, my kid was crying because he didn't want to do any math practice. By Wednesday, I moved craft time to fill the reading slot, and the whole thing was already off the rails. By Friday, the schedule was under a pile of mail, and we were back to Roblox and cereal. Summer 2 is no schedule at all, total freedom. You're old enough to manage your own time. By week 2, bedtime had drifted to midnight, breakfast was happening at noon, and my child was having daily meltdowns because, and I quote, "There's nothing to do, but also I don't want to do anything you suggest." Sound familiar? The rigid schedule collapses, the no schedule approaches chaos, and every summer you oscillate between the two, wondering if there's a third option. There is a third option, and that's what today's episode is about. Welcome back to Insights from Insight. I am Amanda. I'm really happy that you're here. We're in week 3 of the Summer Blueprint, our month-long deep dive into executive function and summer. In week 1, we covered the summer cliff, and week 2, we looked at your own executive function as a parent. Today, we're getting into practical stuff, how to build what I call a flexible structure, which is a summer routine that supports executive function without being so rigid that it breaks the first time reality gets in the way. Before I give you the framework, I want to explain why neither extreme works, because if you don't understand the why, you'll default back to them by July. Why rigid schedules fail specifically for neurodiverse kids is that a rigid schedule assumes that your child can transition smoothly from one activity to the next, on command, at predictable intervals. That assumption requires strong cognitive flexibility, solid task initiation, and reliable emotional regulation, which are exactly the executive function skills that neurodiverse kids struggle with the most. Dr. Ross Greene, author of The Explosive Child, makes a powerful point about this. He says that challenging behavior occurs when the demands of the environment exceed the child's capacity to respond adaptively. A rigid schedule is high demand. Stop this thing you're enjoying and start this new thing you didn't choose, and do it now. For a child with weak cognitive flexibility, that's a demand their brain literally cannot meet, and the result is either a meltdown or a shutdown. Also, and this is important, rigid schedules give kids zero ownership. Everything is decided for them, which means you just recreated the school year dynamic where the EF is externalized. The structure does the thinking, and the child never builds the skill. So let's talk about why unstructured time fails the neurodiverse kid. On the flip side, total freedom is paralyzing. We talked about this in week 1. Unstructured time removes the 3 things that support executive function: predictable transitions, externally paced time, and social accountability. For a child with weak task initiation, an empty day is not an opportunity, it's a void. Their brain scans the options, gets overwhelmed by the lack of structure, and defaults to the lowest effort, highest dopamine activity available. For a child with weak task initiation, an empty day is not an opportunity. It's a void. Their brain scans the options, gets overwhelmed by the lack of structure, and defaults to the lowest effort, highest dopamine activity available, which is almost always a screen. Ellen Galinsky, author of Mind in the Making, describes this as the paradox of choice. Too many options without a framework for choosing between them creates decision fatigue in developing brains. The child isn't choosing screens because they're addicted. They're choosing screens because choosing anything else requires executive function, and they don't have that available. So rigidity removes ownership and freedom removes scaffolding. Neither builds executive function, and the answer is in the middle. Here's the framework. I call it anchor, block, choose, and it's 3 layers of structure. Each one gives your child a little more EF practice than the one before it. So let's talk about layer 1. Anchors are the non-negotiable fixed points of the day, and they don't change. They happen at roughly the same time every day, and there are only 3 to 5 of them. My recommended anchors for summer are 1, a wake-up window. Not you must be up by 7:30, a window. So between 8 and 9, you're up, dressed, and you've eaten. The window gives flexibility while maintaining structure. A second anchor is one productive block. This is the non-negotiable daily effort. It could be 30 minutes of reading, a chore, a learning activity, a practice session, whatever it is. It happens every day and it happens in the same general time slot, usually morning, because EF is strongest when the brain is fresh. Anchor 3 is outdoor time. And I understand that in the summer, this can be problematic in a lot of areas of the United States. It gets hot in Florida. So my kids are definitely not outside every single day in the summer, but they definitely are doing an activity that's somewhat like an outdoor activity, whether that is playing some kind of game inside that is physical in nature, or even sometimes they'll work out with me. So at least something that has an outdoorsy type of feel to it. And it's at least 30 minutes. And it doesn't need to be structured, just some kind of something to get them physically moving. The fourth anchor is family dinner, or whatever your version of a daily family connection time is. That could literally be at 7:30 we all watch Jeopardy together, but there's something that draws the family together at a specific time every day. And 5 is the wind down routine. It starts the same time every evening. Screens go off, the house gets quiet, and the bedtime sequences begin. That's it. 5 anchors, everything else is flexible. Anchors work because they provide the predictable transitions that the school year provided, but only a handful of them. They give the developing brain enough structure to orient in time without overwhelming it with demands. Research on circadian rhythms and child development show that consistent sleep-wake anchors are the single strongest predictor of emotional regulation in children. Get the morning and evening anchors right, and half the summer battles disappear. Because a well-rested, well-rhythmed brain is dramatically better at every executive function skill. Layer 2 of this flexible schedule are blocks. Between the anchors, you have time blocks, not activities, blocks. Chunks of times with a category, not a script. The morning block is when you can put things in like times table drills if that's an area that your child struggled with during the school year. This is a good area for reading. This is an area where you can support maybe the part of the school year that wasn't the greatest for them and kind of do some summer prep for them. That's also where if your child does have summer reading that's required by the school or summer activities required by the school, that morning block is where you want to do those. And then the afternoon block, which is after lunch and before the dinner anchor. This is the freedom zone, but it is bounded freedom zone. They know it starts after lunch and it ends at dinner. And then the evening block is after dinner before the wind down anchor. So this is family time, hobbies, or just chill. The blocks give shape to the day without dictating every minute. A child waking up knows the shape of their day. Morning is productive-ish, afternoon is free-ish, evening is family-ish, without facing the void of 12 unstructured hours. This is time management scaffolding. You're essentially giving your child an external sense of time structure that their developing brain can't generate internally. Over the summer, as they get used to the blocks, they start internalizing the rhythm. That's EF development happening in real time. Layer 3 is choice boards. This is where it gets good. Within each block, your child chooses what to do. But, and this is the key, they choose from a menu, not from infinity. A choice board is a visible list of pre-approved options for each block. You make it with your child before summer starts. It might look like morning productive block. So you choose 30 minutes of reading, one section of a workbook or learning app, a creative project, drawing, writing, building, puzzles, or a household task from the chore list. And then the afternoon block, you choose screens with the limited time you've agreed on, play outside, a friend hangout, board games, cooking or baking, something like that. The choice board does 3 critical things for executive function. First, it reduces decision fatigue. Instead of what should I do, your child faces which of these do I want. That's a fundamentally easier cognitive task. Second, it builds ownership. They're choosing, not you. The locus of control is shifting from external to internal, which is exactly what we want. Third, it makes task initiation possible. The hardest part of starting is often not the doing, it's the deciding. When the options are visible and limited, the activation energy drops dramatically. Peg Dawson's research on EF interventions for children consistently shows that choice within structure produces the best outcomes. Better than rigid structure, better than total freedom. Children who have autonomy within a scaffolded system develop stronger self-regulation than those at any other extreme. Now, a practical note. The choice board should be physical. A poster on the wall, a laminated card on the fridge, a whiteboard in the hallway, not an app, not a digital list that they have to go find. It's a physical, visible, always accessible, because for a child with a weak working memory, if they can't see it, it doesn't exist. So I've given you the framework, and now let me give you the stuff nobody tells you about implementation, because the framework is the easy part. Keeping it alive past week 1 is the hard part. Practical tip 1 is co-create and don't dictate. Build the summer framework with your child, not for your child. Sit down before summer starts. Memorial Day weekend is perfect for this, and say, we're going to design our summer together. I have some non-negotiables: wake up time, one productive thing a day, dinner together, bedtime routine. Everything else, you get input. Let them choose what goes on the choice board. Let them pick which productive activities they want as options. Research on self-determination theory consistently shows that autonomy produces motivation. When a child feels like they co-authored the system, they're dramatically more likely to use it. Practical tip number 2 is to start the first week with training wheels. For the first week of summer, run the system with heavy scaffolding. Walk them through the morning, point to the choice board, help them choose, set timers for transitions. That's not doing it for them, that's modeling. By week 2, start pulling back. By week 3, you should be able to say, what's your morning plan? And they check the board themselves. This is the zone of proximal development in action. Graduated release of responsibility. Use scaffold, practice, and then fade. Same thing good teachers do every September. Practical tip number 3 is to build in a weekly reset. Every Sunday or whatever day works for your family, do a 5-minute check-in. What worked this week? What didn't work? Do we need to change anything on the choice board? This is critical because it teaches self-monitoring and cognitive flexibility. It normalizes adjusting the system rather than abandoning it, and it gives your child agency over the structure rather than making them feel controlled by it. Practical tip number 4 is expect the wobble. The framework will not work perfectly. Some days your kid will sleep until 11 and refuse the productive block. Some days the choice board will be ignored. Some days you'll be the one who caves and lets screens happen all afternoon because you need the quiet. That's not failure. That's Wednesday. The power of the system is that it resets every morning. A bad day doesn't break it. You just start again tomorrow with the same anchors, the same blocks, and the same choices. Amanda Chen and colleagues in a 2021 study on parenting routines found that consistency of structure matters more than perfection of execution. Families who maintain a routine most days saw nearly identical benefits to families who maintained it every day. The bar is not perfection. The bar is more often than not. Practical tip number 5 is to handle screens intentionally. I know, screens are the elephant in every summer conversation. Here's my approach and you can adjust it. Screens go on the choice board for the afternoon free block. There's a daily time limit. I recommend 45 to 60 minutes for elementary and maybe 90 minutes as a max for a middle or high school kid. And they need to take at least a 15-minute break, and then they can go back to the screen for another block. But they can't just sit there for 4 hours. And the child manages the limit themselves using a visible timer, using your Alexa or your Google or whatever robot you have listening to you. Asking them to set a timer is super easy for your kids to do. And why should you use a timer? Because you've outsourced the time management to a tool instead of making yourself the enforcer. The timer is a boundary, not you. That means the kid gets mad at time and not you. When it goes off, that's the cue. If they struggle with the transition, which they will at first, you use the co-regulation skills from the Console Parent Toolkit. You don't yell, turn it off. You say, I see the timer went off. That's hard. What's your plan for the next block? This turns screen time from a battle into an EF exercise. They're practicing time management, task initiation for the next activity, and cognitive flexibility for the transition. 3 skills, 1 timer. School isn't out yet for most of you, and that's actually perfect because the best time to start building the summer framework is before summer starts. Here's your practice for this week. Pick 1 anchor and start it now. I recommend the evening wind down anchor. Starting this week, tonight, if you can, establish a consistent wind down time. Screens off at a set time, same bedtime routine every night, same sequence. Why this one first? 2 reasons. 1, sleep is the foundation of executive function. Every single EF skill performs worse when a kid is sleep deprived. Get the sleep anchor solid before summer starts, and you've built the strongest possible foundation for everything else. My kids hate that they have bedtime, and my kids extra hate it when school is not in session. But I maintain a very specific bedtime for each kid. And they go to bed separately because they share rooms. So they go to sleep at different times so that they're not just up talking in their beds instead of pretending to sleep. And 2, evening routines are the easiest anchor to establish because you're already there. You're home. You're present. The environment is controlled. It's a low-risk practice run for the bigger system. If you already have a solid bedtime routine like we do, start the morning anchor instead. Set a summer wake-up window and practice it on the weekends. My 13-year-old hates this. The point is, don't wait until June 1st to start. Build one anchor now. I'm working on the weekend wake-up time with lots of complaints, but we're working on it. And get it solid. Then add the rest when school ends. This week's blog goes into much more detail on the choice board and how to build one, what to include for different ages, and a printable template that you can customize. And the link is in the show notes. And here's what I want you to walk away with today. Flexible structure isn't a compromise between rigidity and chaos. It's a completely different approach. It's building a system that does the minimum necessary scaffolding while maximizing your child's opportunity to practice executive function in a safe, supported environment. Anchors give predictability. Blocks give shape. Choice boards give agency. Together, they create a summer that supports your child's developing brain instead of leaving it to fend for itself. And the best part, the system scales. As your child gets better and as their EF skills strengthen over the summer, you can pull back the scaffolding, widen the wake-up window, give them more choice board options, and let them set their own timers. Every time you fade a support, you're telling their brains, I trust you to do this yourself now. And that builds more than executive function. It builds confidence. Next week is our final episode of the Summer Blueprint, the Summer Launchpad. I'm going to pull everything together from this month, the summer cliff, your own EF, flexible schedules, and show you what it looks like to actually launch this plan in your home. And I've got something I've been building for months that I'm really excited to tell you about. It's designed to take everything we've talked about this month and give you a complete system for implementing it. And I'll share all the details next week. Until then, pick your anchor, start tonight, and let me know how it goes. If this series has been helpful, share it with a parent who's dreading summer, and sign up for our weekly emails at insighteducationacademy.org, because the summer strategies don't stop when the podcast does. Thanks for being here, and I'll see you next week for the finale.